Seychelles, officially the Republic of Seychelles, is an archipelago in the Indian Ocean. The 115-island country, whose capital is Victoria, lies 1,500 kilometers east of mainland East Africa. Other nearby island countries and territories include Comoros, Mayotte, Madagascar, Réunion and Mauritius to the south. Seychelles, with a population of 90,024, has the smallest population of any independent African state. However, it does have a larger population than the UK overseas territories St. Helena, Ascension and Tristan da Cunha. History. The Seychelles were uninhabited throughout most of recorded history. Some scholars assume that Austronesian seafarers and later Maldivian and Arab traders were the first to visit the uninhabited Seychelles. The earliest recorded sighting by Europeans took place in 1502 by the Portuguese admiral Vasco da Gama, who passed through the Almirantes and named them after himself. The earliest recorded landing was in January 1609, by the crew of the Ascension, under Captain Sharpe during the fourth voyage of the British East India Company, a transit point for trade between Africa and Asia. The islands were occasionally used by pirates until the French began to take control starting in 1756 when a stone of possession was laid by Captain Nicolas Morphy. The islands were named after Jean Moreau de Seychelles, Louis XV's Minister of Finance. The British controlled the islands between 1794 and 1810. Jean-Baptiste Quayor de Quincy, French administrator of Seychelles during the years of war with the United Kingdom, declined to resist when armed enemy warships arrived. Instead, he successfully negotiated the status of capitulation to Britain, which gave the settlers a privileged position of neutrality. Britain eventually assumed full control upon the surrender of Mauritius in 1810, formalized in 1814 at the Treaty of Paris. Seychelles became a crown colony separate from Mauritius in 1903. Elections were held in 1966 and 1970. Independence was granted in 1976 as a republic within the Commonwealth. In the 1970s, Seychelles was the place to be seen, a playground for film stars and the international jet set. In 1977, a coup d'état by France Albert René ousted the first president of the Republic, James Mancham. France Albert René discouraged over-dependence on tourism and declared that he wanted to keep the Seychelles for the Seychellois. The 1979 constitution declared a socialist one-party state, which lasted until 1991. In the 1980s, there was a series of coup attempts against President France Albert René, some of which were supported by South Africa. In 1981, Mike Hoare led a team of 43 South African mercenaries masquerading as holidaying rugby players in a coup attempt in what is known as the Seychelles Affair. There was a gun battle at the airport, and most of the mercenaries later escaped in a hijacked Air India plane. In 1986, an attempted coup led by the Seychelles Minister of Defense, Ogilvy Berluis, caused President René to request assistance from India. In Operation Flowers Are Blooming, the Indian naval vessel Ins Vindhyagiri arrived in Port Victoria to help avert the coup. The first draft of a new constitution failed to receive the requisite 60% of voters in 1992, but an amended version was approved in 1993. In January 2013, Seychelles declared a state of emergency. The tropical cyclone Felinge caused torrential rain, and flooding and landslides destroyed hundreds of houses. Politics. The Seychelles president, who is head of state and head of government, is elected by popular vote for a 5-year term of office. The cabinet is presided over and appointed by the president, subject to the approval of a majority of the legislature. The unicameral Seychellois Parliament, the National Assembly or Assemblée Nationale, consists of 34 members, of whom 25 are elected directly by popular vote. while the remaining 9 seats are appointed proportionally according to the percentage of votes received by each party. All members serve 5-year terms. Political culture. Seychelles' previous president France Albert René came to power after his supporters overthrew the first president James Mancham on the 5th of June 1977 in a coup d'état and installed him as president. René was at that time the prime minister. Albert René ruled as a strongman under a socialist one-party system until in 1993, when he was forced to introduce a multi-party system. During his tenure, he was accused of involvement in criminal activity. U.S. Ambassador to Seychelles David Fisher has stated publicly that René was complicit in money laundering and murder, among other things. He stepped down in 2004 in favor of his vice president, James Mitchell, who was re-elected in 2006 and again in 2011. The primary political parties are the ruling Socialist People's Party, known until 2009 as the Seychelles People's Progressive Front, and the socially liberal Seychelles National Party. Foreign relations. Seychelles is a member of the African Union, the Francophone Indian Ocean Commission, La Francophonie and the Commonwealth. Administrative divisions. Seychelles is divided into 26 administrative regions that comprise all of the inner islands. 8 of the districts make up the capital of Seychelles and are referred to as Greater Victoria. Another 14 districts are considered the rural part of the main island of Mahé, with 2 districts on Praslin and 1 on La Diga, which also includes respective satellite islands. The rest of the outer islands are the last district, recently created by the Tourism Ministry. Geography. An island nation, Seychelles is located in the Indian Ocean, northeast of Madagascar and about 1,600 kilometers east of Kenya. The archipelago consists of more than 116 islands. The granitic islands are considered the oldest and hardest granite in the world. The majority of the islands are uninhabited, with many dedicated as nature reserves. The islands, as per the Constitution, are divided into groups as follows. There are 45 granite-based islands known as the granitic Seychelles. These are in descending order of size: Mahé, Praslin, Silhouette Island, La Diga, Curieux, Felicity, Fregate, Santan, North, Surf, Marianne, Grand Sur, Terres, Aride, Conception, Petite Sur, Cousin, Long, Acute Cif, Round, Anonyma, Mammals, Moyenne, Eden, Isle Soleil, Romanville, Isle of Aix Marines, Lasletta, Beacon, Cachet, Cocos, Round, La Lotte, Fregate, Booby, Chauvisau-Arish, Isle La Fouche, Hodol, La Lotte, Rat, Sourish, Saint Pierre, Zave, Harrison Rocks. There are 2 coral sand cays north of the granitics, Dennis and Bird. There are 2 coral islands south of the granitics, Coetavi and Platte. There are 29 coral islands in the Amirantes group, west of the granitics. Des Roches, Poivre Atoll, Alphonse, Daros, Saint Joseph Atoll, Marie-Louise, Des Nerfs, African Banks, Raymaya, Saint François, Bouders, Etoile, Bijoutia. There are 13 coral islands in the Farquhar group, south-southwest of the Amirantes. Farquhar Atoll, Providence Atoll and St. Pierre. There are 67 raised coral islands in the Aldabra group, west of the Farquhar group. Aldabra Atoll, Assumption Island, Astove and Cosmolado Atoll, Isle Nord-Est, Isle de Trou, Galettes, Grand Polita, Petit Polita, Grand Isle, Pagode, Isle du Sud-Ouest, Isle aux Moustiques, Isle Baleine, Isle aux Chauvisau-Arish, Isle aux Macaques, Isle aux Rats, Isle du Nord-Ouest, Isle Observation, Isle Sud-Est and Île at Larquois. Climate. The climate is equable although quite humid, as the islands are small, classified by Köppen Geiger system as tropical rainforest. The temperature varies little throughout the year. Temperatures on Mahé vary from 24 to 30 degrees Celsius. and rainfall ranges from 2,900 mm annually at Victoria to 3,600 mm on the mountain slopes. Precipitation is somewhat less on the other islands. During the coolest months, July and August, the average low is about 24 degrees Celsius. The southeast trade winds blow regularly from May to November, and this is the most pleasant time of the year. The hot months are from December to April, with higher humidity. March and April are the hottest months, but the temperature seldom exceeds 31 degrees Celsius. Most of the islands lie outside the cyclone belt, so high winds are rare. Wildlife environmental legislation is very strict, and every tourism project must undergo an environmental review and a lengthy process of consultations with the public and conservationists. According to the Timothy Abreu Memorial Wildlife Fund's 2014 Guide to Green Vacationing, Seychelles is a world leader in sustainable tourism. The end result of this sustainable development is an intact and stable natural environment, which attracts financially strong visitors rather than short-term mass tourism. Since 1993, a law guarantees the citizens the right to a clean environment and at the same time obliges them to protect this environment. The country holds a record for the highest percentage of land under natural conservation, nearly 50% of the total land area. Like many fragile island ecosystems, Seychelles saw the loss of biodiversity when humans first settled in the area, including the disappearance of most of the giant tortoises from the granitic islands, the felling of coastal and mid-level forests, and the extinction of species such as the chestnut-flanked white-eye, the Seychelles parakeet, and the saltwater crocodile. However, extinctions were far fewer than on islands such as Mauritius or Hawaii, partly due to a shorter period of human occupation. Seychelles today is known for success stories in protecting its flora and fauna. The rare Seychelles black parrot, the national bird of the country, is now protected. The granitic islands of Seychelles are home to about 75 endemic plant species, with a further 25 or so species in the Aldabra group. Particularly well known is the coco de mer, a species of palm that grows only on the islands of Praslin and neighboring Curios. Sometimes nicknamed the love nut because of the shape of its fruit which, with the husk removed, presents a double coconut resembling buttocks. The coco de mer produces the world's heaviest seed pods. The jellyfish tree is to be found in only a few locations on Mahé. This strange and ancient plant in a genus of its own has resisted all efforts to propagate it. Other unique plant species include the Wright's gardenia, found only on Aride Island Special Reserve. The freshwater crab genus Seychellum is endemic to the granitic Seychelles, and a further 26 species of crabs and 5 species of hermit crabs live on the islands. The Aldabra giant tortoise now populates many of the islands of Seychelles. The Aldabra population is the largest in the world. These unique reptiles can be found even in captive herds. It has been reported that the granitic islands of Seychelles supported distinct species of Seychelles giant tortoises. The status of the different populations is currently unclear. There are several unique varieties of orchids on the islands. Seychelles hosts some of the largest seabird colonies in the world. In the outer islands, Aldabra and Cosmoledo are home to the largest numbers. In granitic Seychelles, the largest numbers are on Aride Island, including the world's largest numbers of 2 species. The marine life around the islands, especially the more remote coral islands, can be spectacular. More than 1,000 species of fish have been recorded. Environmental issues. Since the use of spear guns and dynamite for fishing was banned through efforts of local conservationists in the 1960s, the wildlife is unafraid of snorkelers and divers. Coral bleaching in 1998 has damaged most reefs, but some reefs show healthy recovery. Despite huge disparities across nations, Seychelles claims to have achieved nearly all of its Millennium Development Goals. 17 MDGs and 169 targets have been achieved. Environmental protection is becoming a cultural value. Their government's Seychelles Climate Guide describes the nation's climate as rainy, with a dry season with an ocean economy in the ocean regions. The southeast trades is on the decline but still fairly strong. Reportedly, weather patterns there are becoming less predictable. Population demographics. When the British gained control of the islands during the Napoleonic Wars, they allowed the French upper class to retain their land. Both the French and British settlers used enslaved Africans, and although the British prohibited slavery in 1835, African workers continued to come. Thus the Grand Plan of French origin dominated economic and political life. The British administration employed Indians on indentured servitude to the same degree as in Mauritius, resulting in a small Indian population. The Indians, like a similar minority of Chinese, were confined to a merchant class. Through harmonious socio-economic policies and developments over the years, today Seychelles is described as a fusion of peoples and cultures. Numerous Seychellois are considered multiracial, blending from African, Asian and European descent to create a modern Creole culture. As the islands of Seychelles had no indigenous population, the current Seychellois are composed of people who have immigrated. The largest ethnic groups were those of African, French, Indian and Chinese descent. French and English are official languages along with Seychellois Creole, which is primarily based upon French, yet nowadays is often laced with English words and phrases. The median age of the Seychellois was 32 years. Religion. According to the 2010 census, most Seychellois are Christians. 76.2% were Roman Catholic, pastorally served by the exempt Diocese of Port Victoria or Seychelles. 10.6% were Protestant. Hinduism is practiced by 2.4%, and Islam by 1.6%. Other non-Christian faiths accounted for 1.1% of the population, while a further 5.9% were non-religious or did not specify a religion.